Okay, so we're going to look at perpendicular lines, so essentially lines that are right angles to each other. Okay, that's what perpendicular means. They cross each other at 90 degrees. Now, there's a rule. So if we know the gradient of one line, we can easily determine the gradient of the other line. And to do that, quite simply, suppose I wanted to get the gradient of this line, and I know the gradient of the other line. To work out the gradient of the line I want here, it's quite simply it's the negative of the reciprocal of the gradient of the other line. Okay, so we'll do some examples now to see what that means. So if we look at question 20 here, okay, it says determine the gradient of the line that is perpendicular to y equals 3x plus 4. Well, this line has got a gradient of 3, yeah? So if you remember, the value in front of the x tells us what the gradient is. So the gradient of the first line is equal to 3. So to get the gradient of the line we want, the one that's perpendicular to it, is going to be the negative of the reciprocal of this. So we're going to have a minus. The reciprocal of this will be 1/3. So that will be the gradient there. And then it says, hence write down the equation of this perpendicular line given that it passes through 0, 7. So remember 0, 7 is like the y-intercept. Okay, so here where it crosses the y-axis, so c will be 7. So when it comes to then the equation of the line y equals mx plus c, we'll have negative 1/3 for the gradient, x plus then 7 for the c. Question 21 then something that's very similar. So in this case we've got y equals minus 4x. Okay, there's no c afterwards. So there is a c, it's just obviously it's going to be 0. Yeah, it's just not written down. So it'll cross through the origin. But more importantly, for this line, the gradient of this first line will be negative 4. So then to get the gradient of the perpendicular line, the line that goes at right angles to it, remember now it's the negative of the reciprocal of this. So essentially, if I'm going to have the negative of this, I'm going to have the negative of the reciprocal of this, which will be negative 1/4. So essentially then you'll have two minuses here which become a plus. So we end up having a quarter. Okay, so you just need to remember when you do the perpendicular gradient, it's always going to have a sign change. So if that's the gradient of the first line, the perpendicular to it, the sign will change. It'll go from negative to positive. And of course then you do the reciprocal. And it was the same up here, wasn't it? There was a positive gradient. So then the perpendicular line will have a negative gradient. You just change the sign essentially and do the reciprocal. So just to finish this off then, write down the equation of this line here, the perpendicular line, will be y equals 1/4 x, okay, and then it intercepts at 2.